AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host, Mark Kelly, brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
Welcome to the AI in Action podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kelly. Our guest today is Justin Shenk. Justin is the CTO and co-founder of Visiolab. Justin and his co-founder, Tim, are looking to change lunch experiences for customers and canteens alike. Justin, very welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
So in a few moments, we're going to talk about Visiolab and how your software is providing an automated food checkout system for canteens and caterers. Before we delve into that, Justin, could you give me a little bit of a background overview about your journey to now?
Sure. So before starting Visiolab, I was working on a few different projects the past few years. So I did co-found a web archive, open history project, and the goal for that was to document the stories from people around the world and to understand how they preserve the stories in their own language and to make it easy to translate them. And that was a lot of fun. I would also point out I did some work in deep learning with Peltarian, and also my background was in neuroscience research, also some consulting with Intel, so quite a wide range of experiences.
My wife is an Irish teacher, so the type of work that you do really resonates with me, because for languages, not to mention kind of Irish languages, to have a kind of an archive there and different people's stories and what's happening, it could so quickly be taken away. But to do that outside of it's not something people would necessarily do at that age, to have that kind of insight to do it. As people get older, you might be able to do that. But I'm sure you probably learned an awful lot about different languages and histories and cultures from that experience.
Definitely. So yeah, as an American who lived in Texas for many years, Texas used to belong to Mexico. So I've been around many people who know the tension between speaking their local language and say the language of that's kind of been imposed. So I'm really thankful for the wide variety of experiences I've had, and to be able to scratch the surface a bit for world languages and culture.
Moving back to topic now, Justin, tell us a little bit about Visiolab and the problems that you're looking to try to solve, applying AI, and how did the whole idea come about?
Sure. So Visiolab is an AI software company providing an automated food checkout system for canteen and caterers. And our system is recognizing food on a tray using various sensors in the iPad, and it makes a fast checkout. So far we're the leader in Visionbased point of sale systems, and our goal is to reduce the long lines at canteens. The project came about last year when I was speaking with the CEO of a Canadian hospital about developing a food volume and calorie estimation app for patients. And my co-founder, Tim Niekamp, at that time, he had started Visiolab and had previously worked for the largest payment provider of German university canteens. So this payment provider was interested in having a vision-based checkout, but they couldn't build it themselves. And Tim and I synchronized on this. We shared a vision of how the technology would be soon transforming the whole marketplace, and I joined as co-founder soon after that.
You saw a problem and you went and executed against that as well, which is fantastic to see. Tell me about some of the case studies that are kind of coming to market, and maybe applications, and any other thoughts on that.
Vision-based inspections and counting items visually isn't new technology itself, but we do see that there's a big push towards edge devices, and that'll continue to transform many industries like retail, transportation, and production. So for example, like inventory management or monitoring driving safety. So you've had several experts discussing this on your podcast and in the AI in Action meetup. Anything that a user can be taught from a distance as well. So for example, there's a new startup, Mixpose, coming out of San Francisco that is leveraging the computational power of smartphones to help guide people in doing yoga poses at home. I expect to see many more technologies like this, where these complex AI models, which are designed to fit on a smartphone or iPad, will have increasing relevance to our lives and will have disruptive effects on traditional industries.
So when you think of the finished product and the finished article, sometimes we can kind of forget about the challenges that you need to overcome and the obstacles in your way. Can you tell us a little bit about some of them and how you went about solving them?
The main technical challenge I've experienced when building a B2B product is integrating with the customer's ongoing processes and technologies. So it's like if you're building an airplane, you can easily sell seats to the customers. But if you build an airplane engine, then you really have to have a good understanding of the needs of the vehicle and how the parts fit together. So this is particularly why we decided to switch from these bulky, complex hardware solutions for food checkout and food vision solutions to the most elegant kind of hardware that we could find in an iPad. And since we've been switching over, we've had so much customer demand. Like everyone wants to have one of these because it's just so much easier to fit into your business environment.
And what hasn't been done before, in your opinion, Justin?
So timing wise, we're really fortunate that this is a sweet spot in AI for edge devices. When we started, we took the same approach as our competitors, and they were using this bloated kind of custom engineered hardware pieces. And this was necessary until a few years ago when the AI accelerators and computer chips. So until a few years ago, these chips, AI accelerators, are making it possible to run neural networks on edge devices. So now we can do, for example, a few years back, I was developing a facial recognition app for Intel, which was designed to run on a Raspberry Pi. It was already clear back then that there was going to be a big shift to mobile for practically any AI model. And that's great because it lets us, as a company, we can focus on building these AI models and software that can recognize items after only seeing one image of it, and then we can also focus on our user experience, which means that hardware is less of a factor, and so it's all about the software now.
Think about all the photos and how you're actually going to train some of these models. Is there like a place that you can just buy the photos? Is there a repository of photos? I'm kind of about, I don't know, mashed potato, carrots, peas, soft drinks. So how do you start to go about training that?
Sure. So to be able to recognize a dish like mashed potatoes, usually you would need lots and lots of images in your data set to be able to recognize it later. And so what we do is we start with the data that's already available. And for example, Food 101 is a good starting point. And we also have the advantage of some data from a German canteen. Combining all of this data together, we're able to get a really clear picture about what kind of food images we would see. And after seeing 1,000 different potato dishes, then a model can recognize another potato dish. That's the advantage.
How's the feedback been from engaging with different types of customers?
So far, the feedback's been really positive. So everyone that has seen the showcase so far has converted to a pilot project, we were surprised about this, especially with the timing of Corona. There was a time where it was really hard to get anyone to talk to us, but there's also now the shift towards contactless payment. So I think there's a lot of interest in this, and it's pretty clear that the standards will change in the next couple of years. Towards contactless payments, towards vision-based identification. So yeah, so far it's been really positive.
Where do you see the future going, I suppose, in this area, but also slightly changing gears with applications of AI, the next 18 months, and if you're bold enough, 3 years?
So as you've talked about in your podcasts and your meetups, NLP is especially relevant these days. So the GPT-3 models getting a lot of attention lately and have some really cool applications. So these models though are quite huge in terms of the memory footprint, and they require a ton of data. So just keeping the operational cost down is going to be a big challenge. So for example, it can cost $10K a month just to host one of these models in the cloud. So it's still quite a barrier for early stage startups.
it's very interesting to see how GPT-3 is receiving a lot of attention, and there's already, I can see the applications being very, really innovative and cool from it. So many coming through. It is quite hyped as well, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because a lot of people are talking about it. But it's definitely at a point now where you feel like, okay, I think some major changes are going to happen across the industry. There's some really interesting case studies coming to market. Or what advice would you offer to people who want to get into artificial intelligence or work on different types of projects, but don't necessarily know where to start?
Sure. There's so many ways to get involved in terms of projects, and just going on the internet, catching a course on Coursera. But like the main thing I can recommend is to get some responsibility on your shoulders. So find someone who will trust you with their code, like create a project and put it on GitHub. What's great nowadays is that everyone is connected, so you don't really depend on the people in front of you to give you feedback about your ideas. You can just reach out to someone and get that kind of feedback through your work. Like for example, contact me if you want to do an internship with the brightest AI research engineers at Visiolab.
Oh, nice. Very, 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 very helpful to offer that too. So you've been listening to the AI in Action podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kelly. And our guest today has been Justin Shenk. Justin's the CTO and co-founder of Visiolab. And Justin's been sharing how him and his co-founder Tim are looking to change the notes experiences for both customers and canteen. Justin, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Mark.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. For more information, contact mark@alldus.com. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.